So man being created in God's image shows he has intelligence. He has rationale to make moral judgment. So then, therefore, man's origin is founded in the divine intelligent creatorship of an eternally wise God. If then man's origin is because of God, what about man's rights? What does the Bible have to say about that? Again, the Bible tells us this. Man was created with a divine intelligent purpose. The human being was created with a divine purpose. Mark chapter 12 and verse 30 tells us this, that God created mankind to love him. It says, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, and with all thy strength, which is the human faculties. This is the first commandment. So God created man with a purpose. And also Deuteronomy tells us this, therefore thou shalt love the Lord thy God, and keep his charge, and his statutes, and his judgments, and keep his commandments always. Now what does this show us in regards to human rights? It simply shows that human beings has conscience and is subjected to divine authority, love to God. Therefore, to all of mankind is the realm of individual conscience to the Creator. So to love to God shows that human beings are obligated to the Creator. Their conscience has to be subjected to a divine authority.
Amen.
But it's not all, because remember, we are human beings. So the brotherhood of human beings has to be taken into account.
Yes, sir.
So therefore, in Mark chapter 12, verse 31, it tells us this, that mankind was also created to love his fellow men. It says, and the second is like unto it also, namely this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself.
Yes.
There is none other commandment greater than these. So this shows that all human beings have an obligation to each other in the brotherhood of man.
Amen.
Socially and civilly, or under civil duties. And in this sense, we have to have respect for each other in regards to human rights. Okay? So then therefore, okay, so that's what we have to get clear is this.
Now, this is very deep. It seems as if you have done your studies on this topic. Now, are you saying that we ought to love our fellow men in the context of the Ten Commandments?
Definitely so. We must do that. Because in a social context, while Christians are called upon to love God in obedience to his 10 commandments, we are speaking about the human race. Every religion doesn't follow the 10 commandments. Some don't even believe it exists.
It's true.
Okay, some deny it. They say it's not to be kept. But the 10 commandments, if we put it across in a civil sense, it relates to society in regards to the rights of man. So God is going to point out this in the scriptures. Let me turn to Romans chapter 13, verse 8 and verse 10. It says here, owe no man anything but to love one another. For he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. And verse 10 tells us, love worketh no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. This shows, therefore, the 10 commandments must be viewed as it gives to society secular codes of legislation expressed as the rights of man. How can I love a person who has diverse concepts in religion than me? How am I to love a Catholic? I may disagree with his theological concept, but I can love him as a human being in regards to his rights. So God is telling us the 10 commandments in a civil sense, it gives secular codes of legislation expressed as the rights of man. Okay? Let me go a little further and express this to you. The 10 commandments in Exodus chapter 20 tells us this. I'm quoting them in an abridged sense from verse 2 to verse 18. It says, the first commandment says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. The second says, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Okay? Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them or serve them. The third commandment says, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. The fourth commandment says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. And the fifth commandment says, honor thy father and thy mother. The sixth commandment, thou shalt not kill. The seventh, thou shalt not commit adultery. The eighth, thou shalt not steal. And the ninth, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. And the 10th, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Now the point is, these 10 commandments, when legislated in a state and is ratified, gives us the rights of man. It really gives it. Let me express a little further. When God said, thou shalt have no other gods before me, he's speaking about a man's conscience, his religious concept. When he says, thou shalt not make unto thee any given image, he's still speaking about what? Religion. When he says, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, he's still applying to religious concepts. When he says, remember the Sabbath and to keep it holy, he's still speaking in the realm of religion. Therefore, these first 4 clauses of the 10 Commandments are speaking in a civil sense about religious liberty. Okay? This is what people have to understand. This is the unique contribution of us, 2 has to contribute to society. We are saying the 10 Commandments is the source and the origin of the rights of man, because it cannot be embedded upon secular courts. Okay? It cannot be like that.
I have a question to Brother Van Buren.
Yes.
Is it correct that the civil government legislate Sunday laws?
Okay, well, we are coming to that. I'll answer that point along the way. That's a very a far point. But the point I want to emphasize is that these 4 clauses expresses religious liberty. Religious liberty is a natural right to all men. All men has religious what? Liberty. And God has said, have no other gods before me. So he's telling the man, the unconverted man in society, listen, you have a right to determine who is your God by your conscience. Now God will speak to his conscience to show who is the true God. But we are dealing with a secular society. So the 10 Commandments in secular codes refers to religious liberty, as with the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Okay? Also, when it says, honor thy father and thy mother, when it says, thou shalt not kill, which is the 6th commandment, and the 9th commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, these clauses, the 5th, the 6th, and the 9th, are speaking about the right to life. Let me emphasize how. Honor thy mother and thy father, that thy days will be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Your mother and your father is the source of your earthly birth. But as we saw before, God created what? All men. The first man and the first woman. So when you transfer the 5th commandment into a secular sense, God is saying all men have the right to what? To life. Also, thou shalt not kill. It means that for no man should take my life. Why? Because I have the right to exist. Which God created me, and I'm born from my parents.
Yes, sir.
But the 9th commandment also tells us, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Now we know in a secular society, if a crime was committed, and someone bear false witness against me as a criminal, I will end up under what?
Condemnation.
On condemnation by the courts. So they are bearing false witness as to who committed the crime. So even speaking lies is killing a man. It's killing his character, which under jurisprudence or court law, what happened? The man ended up being what? Accused of the crime, and he could be apprehended and he could be hanged, get the death penalty. So the point I'm saying here, therefore, my dear people, and get this point clear, people out there, the 10 Commandments is the source of your rights. If the great God of heaven loved you so much that he could give 10 commandments, which outlines your rights, it means those rights are inalienable. No man can touch it. Okay? So I'm saying the right to life is the 2nd right that God has given mankind. Now the 7th commandment says, thou shalt not commit adultery. The 8th commandment says, thou shalt not steal. And the 10th commandment says, thou shalt not covet. These other 3 clauses identify the right to private property. Why I'm saying that? Thou shalt not commit adultery. A man's wife is his what? Private property. To take the man's wife is to take away what? His private property. Thou shalt not steal. Whatever the Bible says, by the sweat of thy face thou shalt what?
Eat bread.
So what a man works for, that is his private property.
Now, Brother Westmoreland, I would, for our women out there who might take offense to that statement, that they're no man's property. How would you, just for a clarification for our woman audience, that disagree that they're someone's property, can you just clear that up for us?
Under the oath of marriage, when you take that oath, in the eyes of God, you belong to the man. If you're married to the man and you say not his property, then why did you get married? So I'm dealing under the fact of marriage. Understand? Once a woman or a man vows their allegiance of affection to each other, they're each other's property.
Okay.
So no one should come